Are you seriously giving sauce to that bum again? Felicia's voice cut through the static of the headset, louder than the fryer behind me. I didn't look up, just placed the second cup of honey mustard into the small brown bag and folded it twice like I always did. The man outside the walk-up window was there every Friday. Same torn army coat, same polite nod, same line, always delivered in a voice like gravel through gravel. Appreciate you, brother. I slid the bag under the partition and said, stay warm out there. He gave a two-finger salute and shuffled off into the snow. He never asked for more, never stayed longer than 30 seconds. Felicia stood behind me, arms folded, headset askew, a smile that wasn't a smile curling up beneath her fake lashes. You just gave away product, she said. I didn't answer. She turned toward the kitchen and raised her voice. Tony, clock him out, back office, now. The line outside was 6 cars deep. The headset buzzed with an order mid-sentence. Someone asked for no onions, and the mic clicked off. Kyle at Register 3 looked over, but said nothing. I pulled off my gloves. The sauce still clung to my fingers like glue. The office smelled like burned grease and cleaning chemicals. A stack of paper cups leaned half-collapsed in the corner by the employee schedule, where 4 names had already been crossed out this week. I sat on the folding chair across from her desk without being asked. She didn't sit. She paced. You've been warned, she said. It's $1 worth of sauce. 2 if you count the napkins. It adds up. I didn't speak. Felicia leaned on the desk like a prosecutor in a made-for-TV courtroom drama. This isn't a soup kitchen, she said. We're a business. She pulled out a form, standard pink, employee termination, my name already filled in, across the top in her handwriting, unauthorized distribution of product. You're done, she said, sliding the paper toward me like it was some kind of mercy. I already called district. I looked at the pen on the desk, didn't reach for it. Is Carl outside? I asked. She blinked. Who? District manager. You said you called him. She looked toward the CCTV screen showing the lot. Carl's pickup truck was there right outside the side door. Of course he's here, she said. This isn't a write-up, it's a termination. The word sat heavy in the room, like it had weight, like it meant something. When I stepped out into the kitchen, everything got quiet. Tony was scraping the grill with the back of the spatula. Kyle was bent over the register, not typing. Even the headset kid, Deshaun, wasn't saying anything. Felicia followed me out and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, let this be an example. Company policy matters. Every penny counts. Then she walked back toward the front like she'd just dropped the winning line of her high school play. I didn't pack anything, just reached up, unhooked the visor from my head, and placed it on the counter beside the register. I stood there a second longer than I needed to, letting the sounds fill in. The buzz of the heat lamp, the hiss of the oil, the static feedback from headset channel 1. All of it had been home for 7 years. I turned to leave through the side exit, and that's when I saw him. The vet, still standing just beyond the curb, holding the bag with both hands like it might disappear. A security guard had come around from the side. Corporate-issue jacket, clipboard, radio clipped to his shoulder. You need to move along, sir, the guard said. The vet didn't move, just looked down at the bag and said, he was just being decent. I didn't say anything. The guard stepped forward. Let's not make this complicated. The vet looked over at me, then nodded to the guard and walked off slowly, toward the stoplight. I reached for the door. Wait, Felicia said, appearing again behind the counter. You need to sign the form. I paused. Then I turned back, walked to the register, picked up the pink slip, and turned it over. On the back, I wrote a single sentence. Thanks for the opportunity. And I walked out. The first time I walked into that building, I was 19 and desperate. Mom had just come home from the hospital with a diagnosis that didn't come with a timeline, just a warning. She won't be able to work anymore. I had 2 weeks of rent left, $61 in a checking account that used to hold my graduation money, and an old iPhone I couldn't afford to replace. I saw the now hiring sign while walking to the bus stop and figured it was better than panhandling. The manager back then was a guy named Russell, mid-30s, clipboard always tucked under his arm like it was an extension of his spine. He asked if I had any experience, and I said, not unless being broke counts. He laughed. Not a real laugh, but enough to hand me an application. I started on fries the next day. The first year, I didn't mind the burns, or the double shifts, or the way my feet felt like they'd been sledgehammered every night. I'd walk the 2 miles home, peel off my shoes at the door, and Mom would always be awake waiting for me. Even when the meds made her too tired to eat, she'd sit up on the couch, wrap a blanket around her knees, and ask about my shift. Get yelled at today? Of course. Make someone's lunch better? Probably not. We used to laugh at that. Some nights, I'd bring home an extra bun or two, maybe a container of pickles if the closing manager wasn't paying attention. We'd make sad little sandwiches and watch old VHS tapes on the tiny screen we rescued from a thrift shop. Our favorites were movies where the underdog never won, We always said those were more honest. By year 3, I was training new hires. Kids younger than me, fresh out of high school, bright-eyed, still believing they'd only be here until they figured things out. Some of them lasted a week. A few stayed a year. None longer than that. I stayed because I didn't have a choice. Rent didn't pause. Prescriptions didn't discount themselves. And Mom needed a ride to appointments, which meant I needed bus fare or enough to pay someone who had a car and owed me a favor. They offered me a raise once, 25 cents. The same week, I'd covered 3 shifts in a row because someone else no-called. I remember the moment the assistant manager, a guy named Troy back then, handed me the new rate slip. He said, "Don't spend it all in one place," and laughed. I said, "I won't," and went back to the grill. By year 4, I started noticing things. Managers rotated fast. Felicia was the 8th in less than 2 years. They'd arrive full of ambition, talking about promotions, store metrics, culture realignment. By month 3, they were skimming hours, covering for expired product, flirting with the vendor reps who showed up with bonus coupons and grease-stained inventory logs. The staff turned over constantly. I stopped learning new names. I just referred to them by station: register, grill, fryer, trash. One girl lasted 3 days. She cried in the walk-in because a customer told her she was too slow. I showed her how to time the fryer buzzer without relying on the beep. Told her the secret to not crying at work was just to hold your breath until your stomach stopped clenching. She quit the next morning. Year 5, Mom's diagnosis worsened. I'd used up every bit of sick time, vacation, PTO, if you could call it that. It was 3 days total, unpaid. When I asked Felicia for a half day to take Mom to a new specialist, she said, "We can't afford to lose you during rush." I called in sick anyway. When I came back, they'd given my hours to a new hire who had a driver's license and could work nights. That's when I started working doubles. 16 hours standing, back-to-backs with only 3 hours between clock-outs and clock-ins. The bun bins started to blur together. The buzzers and heat lamps and shouted orders melted into a single looping noise. I kept my head down. I kept showing up, because that's what you do when no one else is going to pick up the slack. I never told anyone, but I used to bring home the sauce packets. Not to eat, just to count. They made me feel like I still had control over something. Spicy ranch meant a good shift. Honey mustard meant we didn't run out of inventory. Buffalo was for bad days. I kept them in a drawer by my mattress, arranged in rows. Stupid, I know, but it helped. There was a photo of Mom in my locker, taken at the beach 10 years ago, back when we could still afford vacations. Her hair was tied up in a bandana, and she was holding a paper cup of lemonade, laughing at something just out of frame. That photo was taped to the back wall with 2 slivers of Scotch tape, so thin they looked like spider web. The day I got fired, I didn't go back to grab it. The next morning, I came by before open, asked Tony if I could grab my stuff. He said, "Felicia already cleared out your locker." I asked if he saved the photo. He looked uncomfortable. I didn't see it. I didn't ask again. By year 6, the vet started coming by. Always around Friday, always just after lunch rush, when the sidewalk was less crowded. He never asked for money, just wanted one plain cheeseburger. No pickles, no onions. Sometimes he'd have change, sometimes not. Sometimes I'd just hand it to him through the window. No questions. He used to say things like, "Most people just look through me," or, "It's the small things that let a man remember he's still a man." He gave me a business card once, wrinkled, water-damaged, said he used to do compliance work. IRS, government contractor. Then a few bad years, a drinking problem, a divorce, you know how it goes. I kept the card in my wallet behind my bus pad. He never asked for more than what I gave, until the day I gave him an extra sauce cup. That was the first time I saw him hesitate. "Sure?" he asked. I said, "Yeah, just mustard." He nodded like I'd given him a gold watch. 5 minutes later, I was being fired. On the walk home that day, I stopped by the corner bodega to buy ramen and ibuprofen. Total came out to $5.72. I handed over 6 crumpled ones and told the clerk to keep the change. When I got home, Mom was asleep in the recliner. I didn't wake her. I went to my room, sat on the floor, opened the drawer full of sauce packets, and poured them all out on the floor. Buffalo, spicy ranch, honey mustard. I counted each one until my hands stopped shaking. There were 217. I picked one up and held it in the light, just staring. It looked the same as always, but it wasn't. The flash drive was inside the front pocket of my apron, tucked behind a faded receipt and a bent plastic straw wrapper. I only found it because I was folding laundry and heard a faint click when the apron hit the floor. Thought it might be a coin. Turned out to be a thumb drive the size of a paperclip. Cheap, blue, heat-warped on the edges. I'd forgotten it was even there. It still worked. I plugged it into my old laptop. The one I'd bought used from a pawn shop 2 years ago when Mom's health records wouldn't load on her tablet anymore. The drive mounted instantly. Shift-Vide old. Inside were 3 folders. Kitchen, stockroom, lot. The files were date-stamped. all from a year ago, back when the store was getting robbed every other week, and corporate told us to be vigilant, but refused to install better locks. I'd been keeping my own backup footage then, not because I was suspicious, just because the security system on site crashed twice a week, and the last time it went down, Tony got blamed for $600 of missing beef patties. I thought having copies might protect someone next time. I forgot I still had them. I started scrolling, mostly out of habit. It was late, and Mom was asleep again, breathing like the world was sitting on her chest. The apartment was hot. Our building hadn't fixed the heating valve in 3 winters. My fan made a low ticking sound that always stopped around 3 a.m., then restarted 5 minutes later like it needed to catch its breath. I didn't expect to find anything, until I opened a clip dated July 9th, labeled LotCam32349.mp4. The view was grainy, slightly crooked, mounted just above the rear delivery door. Most nights it showed nothing but shadows and the back fence. But not that night. That night it showed Carl, the district manager, backing his truck up to the loading dock at 11:49 p.m. We closed at 10:30. He opened the hatch, popped it with his elbow, like he'd done it 1,000 times. A few minutes later, another man appeared. The vendor from Bingham Supply Company. Gray hoodie, clipboard, head always down. Together, they loaded 3 full crates into the back of Carl's truck. No labels, no paperwork, no barcode scans. Just boxes moved fast and tucked beneath a tarp like they were never supposed to be seen. I watched the whole thing, then played it again. At the end of the video, Carl turned around, looked straight at the camera, and smiled. I spent the next 4 hours scrubbing every video on the drive. I found 6 more instances. Same truck, same vendor, different nights, different boxes. Some with cleaning supplies, others with oil jugs labeled for resale. One with a box marked, "Do not inventory." That one bothered me the most. At 6:12 a.m., I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table while Mom snored quietly from the other room. Her oxygen machine whirred like a leaky engine, sputtering just enough to remind me it was working. I took out my wallet, flipped past the bus pass and emergency contact slip, and pulled out a crumpled business card. Gerald Milton, compliance consultant, former IRS agent. People who lie always forget paperwork. He gave it to me 6 months ago. I hadn't thought about it since. I texted the number. "This is the sauce guy. You said to call if I ever needed you. I do." He replied 3 minutes later. "Coffee? 8 a.m.? Same bench?" Gerald looked cleaner than I remembered. Same jacket, different shirt. Still had the sunken eyes of a man who'd seen too many contracts and not enough honesty. He held a thermos like it was a newborn, took a sip, and said, "What do you got?" I handed him a second flash drive. I'd copied everything from mine onto a new one I'd bought with the last $8 in my checking account. He plugged it into his tablet, browsed silently for a while. Then he nodded once and said, "Yup, this is textbook." "Kickbacks?" "Worse," he said. "That vendor? Bingham Supply? He's not on their official vendor list. Not even subcontracted. This is off-book." So you have him on video accepting unreported inventory from a non-approved source. That's tax fraud, wire fraud, and about 6 internal compliance violations depending on where this footage ends up. He looked at me and said, "You want to ruin his life?" I sipped my gas station coffee. "I want the truth to cost him more than it cost me." Gerald smiled. "Then let's get to work." We met 4 times that week. He brought the paperwork. I brought the receipts, literal and digital. Every employee login time, every missed inventory count I'd logged in a beat-up spiral notebook. Old vendor invoices I'd found in the trash, folded in half with different handwriting on the approval lines. One had Carl's initials next to an order that was never delivered. 40 gallons of fryer oil, rerouted due to vendor shortages. Except the footage showed him putting them in the back of his truck that night. Gerald explained it like this. He's ghost buying, using a dummy supplier to skim money, then reselling the goods to other franchises under the table for a markup. He gets paid on both ends and your store eats the shortages. I nodded, didn't say anything. It's small time, but the kind of thing corporate hates because it's simple and traceable, especially if the tax forms don't match what he reported. He paused. And especially if someone forwards this to their internal audit team anonymously, with video. He offered to do it for me. I said no. I want them to know where it came from. He raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" I nodded. He handed me a folder. Inside were 2 documents, a whistleblower disclosure form with my name already filled in, and a printout of Carl's online profile, address, employee ID, years with the company. He tapped the second page. "This guy's made a living off burying people like you. You sure you want to go loud?" I said, "No, I want to go quiet." "Then stay quiet," he said. "Let the paper do the talking." That night, I scanned everything onto a clean, single-use Gmail. 1 email, subject line, internal supplier misconduct report. Store 1184. Body. Please review the attached files. I am the employee terminated for unauthorized product distribution on date. This is what your district manager does on his off hours. I attached 7 video files, 4 JPEGs, 2 PDFs, clicked send. Then I turned off the laptop, unplugged the Wi-Fi router, and went to bed. I slept through the night for the first time in a month, not because I felt better, because I knew it was already done. Gerald said I had 2 options. Option 1, file the whistleblower report anonymously. Let corporate do what corporate does. Bury it, maybe fire someone, maybe restructure the paperwork just enough to keep it off the books. I'd never hear the fallout, but I'd sleep cleaner. Option 2, attach my name. Add weight, force response. Accept the risk that someone would retaliate. I chose neither. I chose option 3. We met again on a Tuesday in the back booth of a laundromat cafe that served cold coffee and played AM radio static through overhead speakers. Gerald laid out a flowchart on napkins while I counted sauce packets in my jacket pocket to keep my hands from shaking. "You're thinking long term," he said. "That's good. These people aren't used to people who think." He drew 3 boxes. Supplier, Bingham, district manager, Carl, corporate HQ, internal audit, then a 4th one underneath, you. "Right now," he said, tapping the bottom square, "they think you're a terminated shift worker who gave away sauce. They don't know you're the reason their internal balance sheets are about to go up in flames." I didn't respond, just kept sorting sauces. We set up the first step 2 days later, a burner Gmail account posing as JR Glass Supply Co., a fictional third-party inventory supplier specializing in undermarket fry oil and equipment replacement. It came with a link to a fake landing page Gerald mocked up in 48 hours, complete with a stock photo of a smiling man in a polo shirt giving a thumbs up next to a deep fryer. We cold emailed Carl. Subject, inventory support inquiry. Saw you on the vendor lead board. Hi Carl. Heard from a Bingham contact that you're someone we should connect with directly. We've got surplus grease and paper product ready for private shipping. Direct transfer model, cash discount, discreet and fast. Let me know if you'd like a sample invoice and pricing sheet. Carl replied within 6 hours. Let's talk numbers. You have encrypted transfer set up? He'd done this before. He wasn't even trying to hide it. That same day, Gerald contacted an old friend who worked inside the regional compliance division. Not a high-up, just someone who still owed him a favor from a tax case in 2014. We didn't name names, just sent a question. Would a franchise's internal camera footage showing non-approved vendor drops trigger a regional audit? The reply came in under an hour. Yes. If it's accompanied by active fraud indicators receipts, price manipulation, vendor substitution, it triggers an automatic review. We had all of it. Gerald smiled. Now, all we need is a spotlight. Step 3. Bait the calendar. We scheduled a fake meeting with corporate using the burner email again this time, impersonating me, claiming I'd like to meet in person to discuss recent misunderstandings and share documentation I found post-termination. We set the meeting for a Thursday, 11 a.m., right after the district managers were expected to submit their regional reports. The goal wasn't to meet, it was to create panic, to shake the floor just enough to make someone kick loose the wrong brick. The night before the meeting, I returned to the store for the first time. Not inside, just sat across the street, under the flickering orange of a broken bus stop light. The lot was empty. The drive-through window still glowed, soft and cold, like the eye of something pretending to sleep. Tony walked out around 10:15 looking tired. His shirt was untucked. He stood by the dumpster for a smoke, looked around, and then looked directly at me. He didn't wave. I didn't either, but he didn't look away. That was enough. By morning, Carl had called Felicia twice and corporate one. He emailed the burner account at 8:03 a.m. We need to talk. This is getting serious. We didn't answer. Instead, Gerald sent the final flash drive hard copy in a stamped envelope addressed to the Vice President of Compliance. Next day, tracked and signed. Contents. 3 videos, 2 vendor quote PDFs, handwritten notes from former employee fired for ethics breach he didn't commit. I watched him seal it, tape it, and slide it into the mailbox at 7th and Langston. Then we waited. The plan wasn't just to expose Carl. The plan was to dismantle the entire justification system they'd built to protect people like him, while hiding behind rules they only enforced when convenient. People like Felicia, like Troy before her, like every name I'd written in that notebook when I stayed overtime to fix someone else's shift and got told, that's just what team players do. The plan wasn't revenge, it was silence, the kind that swallows an entire building, not with screams, but with email alerts, internal flags, and conference calls that begin with, "This is not a drill." 2 days later, Gerald texted me a single line, "Check the news. I didn't check the news right away. When Gerald texted me, check the news, I was halfway through folding laundry and had just found one of Mom's socks stuck inside a pillowcase. I finished the load, put it away, sat down at the kitchen table with a cup of instant coffee that tasted like it had been filtered through a rusted pipe. Then I opened the link. Regional Fast Food District Manager under internal investigation for vendor fraud, kickbacks. There was no photo, just a statement from corporate. We take internal ethics violations seriously. The individual in question has been placed on administrative leave pending full audit and cooperation with external legal review. The article didn't say Carl's name, but it didn't have to. By 3 p.m., I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't answer. The voicemail came through 30 seconds later. Felicia's voice. Tight, clipped, frantic, beneath a paper-thin veneer of calm. Hey, I don't know if this is still your number. Look, there's a lot going on. I didn't know about any of it. I was just following Carl's directives. Anyway, if anyone contacts you, please let me know. We were always on good terms, right? I didn't call her back. I never will. That evening, Gerald met me outside the compliance office, a glass-paneled building that smelled like sanitizer and stale toner ink. He wore his old IRS badge clipped to his belt, even though no one asked for it. Habit, he said. He came out 15 minutes later holding a white folder and a half smile. They're moving fast, he said. How fast? 2 stores already closed temporarily. They froze Carl's access badge this morning. He tried to walk in and the doors wouldn't open. I nodded, said nothing. He's not the only one, Gerald continued. Felicia's name is on 5 approval forms for adjusted inventory, all signed after hours. If they dig deeper, she's toast. I didn't respond. The audit team arrived at store 1184 the next morning. Not announced. No email. No warning. 2 suits and a woman in business flats walked in just after breakfast rush and locked the office door behind them. Tony texted me. They're here. Felicia's face is white. She went to the back and hasn't come out. I asked if he was okay. Fine. Just watching. An hour later, they took the safe. Not the big one. The second safe. The little gray one mounted under the desk. The one no one used except Carl and Felicia. Most people didn't even know the combination. She used to joke it was just for vendor perks. They walked out with it and drove away. At noon, I got another voicemail. This time from Carl. Look, I don't know who you've been talking to or what you think you've seen, but there's a lot of moving parts. Nobody's perfect. These supply chains are messy. People make deals to keep things. I'm trying to protect the whole team, so let's talk. We can fix this before it gets worse. I deleted it before it fixed. 3 more stores in the district were visited by audit teams that week. 2 managers were suspended. The vendor, Bingham Supply Company, went completely dark. Website offline. Voicemail full. No return call. Then the real mess, a press release from the company itself. We are terminating our contract with all independent vendor representatives in Region 4 pending criminal investigation into unauthorized. The employee responsible has been dismissed. Tony texted. Felicia quit. Walked out mid-shift. Didn't say good. DM truck is still in the. I watched the video later from another security cam footage of Carl trying to. He pulls the handle, bangs on, then reads up a single. Carl stares at it, then walks away. Gerald called the next day. His voice was most proud. You did it. Then what was it? I stared at the. My apartment still smelled like old fryer grease. My shoes still squeaked from too many years of oil-stained tile. I said, I just wanted them to feel what I felt. And I don't think they're even close. I got a job offer 3 days later. Local cafe, no headset, no screaming, no managers with earpieces barking about ketchup levels. The guy who hired me looked over my application, then said, You didn't list your last job. I said, Didn't think it was relevant. He smiled. Everyone deserves a reset. One afternoon, a woman walked in during the quiet hour. Between the lunch crowd and the after-school rush, she wore a beige sweater and cheap perfume. I recognized her instantly. Felicia. She looked thinner, pale, eyes darting. She didn't order anything, just stood in the doorway, blinking like she wasn't sure she was awake. She saw me. I looked at her. Then I turned back to the coffee pot and said, Next in line? She left without a word. The cafe owner asked me later, You know her? No. You sure? I wiped down the counter. Yeah. The cafe opens at 6 a.m., but I'm usually there by 5:30, not because I have to be, just because it's quiet. No headset static, no deep fryer alarms, no corporate slogans taped to the back of the soda machine, just the hum of the fridge, the clink of cups, and the occasional delivery truck sighing to a stop outside. I wipe down the counters, stock the syrup pumps, take my time. There's a satisfaction in doing things slowly. The owner, Mr. Juno, is an older guy who used to run a sandwich shop before his daughter convinced him to retire somewhere with fewer meats and more almond milk. He wears the same navy apron every day and says things like, Don't rush, this ain't Wall Street. Or, Nobody dies if the muffins are crooked. First time he said that, I had to look away so he wouldn't see me almost laugh. Customers come and go. College kids, nurses, construction guys, retirees. Some know my name, some just nod. I don't talk much. I don't need to. I just hand them what they ask for, exactly how they ask for it, and never forget a face. One regular, an older woman with a red scarf, once said, "You look like someone who's seen too much and says too little." I smiled and handed her her change. She was right. The vet comes by every Friday, still in that old army coat, still walks with a shuffle like his knees are filled with broken glass, but he shaves now, gets haircuts, carries a book instead of a paper bag. He doesn't ask for food anymore. He just orders black coffee and a slice of banana bread, pays in cash, tips too much. Last week, he sat at the counter and said, "You know I never forgot what you did, right?" I didn't answer. He reached into his coat, pulled out a folded newspaper clipping, and slid it across the counter. Corporate fraud case closed. 5 fired. 2 facing federal review. Carl's name was third in the paragraph. Felicia wasn't mentioned, but I already knew she was gone. I pushed the clipping back across the counter. He said, "Don't want to keep it?" I shook my head. Already lived it. Sometimes late in the afternoon when the cafe slows down, I take a seat by the front window, just for a few minutes. There's a little metal basket on the sill where we keep free sugar packets and napkins. One of the newer employees added a dish for creamers and sauces. Just 3 types: ranch, mustard, and buffalo. I never said anything about it, but every week I take one of each and set them neatly beside my cup. No reason, no message, just ritual. One Tuesday, a younger guy walked in with a clipboard and company badge. I recognized the logo, one of the franchises that used to share a vendor with us. He ordered a latte and tried to make small talk. "You ever work fast food?" he asked. I looked up. He gestured to my hands. "You've got the burn marks." I said, "Used to." He nodded like he understood, but he didn't. No one does. Not really. Except the ones who've stood behind a counter at 2 a.m., wiping ketchup off a wall someone punched after being told we were out of apple pies. I still have the notebook, the one where I wrote down shift schedules, missing product counts, staff names. I keep it in a drawer at home beneath a box of sauce packets I've never opened. The photo of Mom is still taped to the inside. Her smile's faded a little. The tape's peeling, but she's there. I talk to her sometimes, quietly, just enough that I remember what it felt like to come home and know someone was waiting to ask, "How bad was today?" Felicia hasn't come back. I saw her once across the street near the bus terminal. She looked different. No makeup, hair pulled back, eyes scanning everyone like she expected bad news. She didn't see me. I kept walking. Carl sent me a message last month. Different number, no name, just, "You win. Hope you're happy." I deleted it. This wasn't a game, and I wasn't trying to win. Some nights I take the long way home, past the old store. The drive-thru is dark now. Lease sign in the window, paint peeling off the back door. The lot is always empty. Except once. There was a homeless guy sitting on the curb, holding a wrinkled paper bag and humming to himself. I crossed the street and handed him a cup from the cafe. Hot chocolate, extra whip. He looked up, blinked, and said, "Bless you, brother." I said, "Stay warm." Then I walked away. I don't need anyone to remember what happened. It's enough that it did. Turns out the smallest thing I ever gave away was the one that cost them everything. That's all for this story. I'll be back with another one. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. It motivates me to create more content like this.